Hello, everyone. In this video, I will walk you through the use of Bluebeam for foundation concrete takeoff. Let's assume we are a concrete subcontractor tasked with preparing a bid for a residential project. We have received the construction drawings for the house's foundation plan, and we aim to perform a detailed quantity takeoff. Now, let's dive in and make sure we get our numbers right, because the last thing we want is to end up with a mountain of leftover concrete. Again, we have a number of principles we adhere to before and during the quantity takeoff. These considerations include setting up the correct scale, grouping or categorizing elements of the same type, taking a systematic approach to quantity takeoff, and choosing industry standard units for calculations. Scale. The first step in quantity takeoff is to ensure the accuracy of the document's scale. This involves verifying that the scale of the drawings, as read by Bluebeam, matches the actual scale as indicated on the drawings. Categorization. We must group items with significant cost differences and report them in different groups of markups or items in the quantity takeoff table. For instance, we should break down the foundation into categories based on the type of foundation, such as a slab on grade versus wall footings. Within each type, we should further group components with similar materials, heights, widths, and construction methods. Sometimes we group components based on the phase of concrete placement, special treatments, reinforcement, or finishes. Additionally, sometimes we might need to consider extra costs for challenging conditions or extreme weather, which could affect how we group the items. We group items primarily because unit costs vary based on design or construction characteristics. For instance, an increase in a slab thickness raises its construction cost, or footings that have different profiles often have different rebar or dowel bar configurations. If we group footings correctly in advance, we can easily reuse the concrete markups to quantify formwork, reinforcement, insulation, and other construction elements. Furthermore, grouping items helps the contractor understand the work, schedule tasks, track takeoffs, optimize cost, reduce the time to revise the estimate, and address other reasons. We can show the labels and quantities of these categories by inserting a legend on our Bluebeam markup. Plus, it's always nice to keep things organized. Otherwise, it's like trying to build a house with a treasure map. Systematic approach. We perform the takeoff in a systematic manner. For instance, we start with the structural concrete, estimating the structural elements first. Then we estimate the non-structural elements. Within the structural concrete category, we begin with larger components and take a clockwise or counterclockwise approach to ensure no item is missed or counted twice. As we measure, we mark up the components on the plan to keep track of what has been already measured. Calculations. To quantify the amount of concrete, we often record the total cubic yard in each category. However, certain concrete-related materials are quantified in units other than cubic yard. For instance, concrete blocks and precast elements are counted individually. This is a sample markup sheet categorizing concrete items in a foundation plan of a discount tire building project. While not perfect, this sample serves to illustrate the significance of grouping or summarizing concrete elements of a foundation and demonstrate how it can be effectively executed in Bluebeam to quantify the volume of concrete, length of reinforcement, and other elements. Once we have opened the drawing, we should ensure that the document has been read at the correct scale. The correct scale is specified as a quarter of an inch equals 1 foot. To set the drawing scale in Bluebeam, we should go to the Tools menu, click on Measure, and select Set a Scale. Here we have two options, using the preset scale option, where we simply find the option that translates a quarter of an inch to 1 foot, or using the custom option. If using the custom option, we have to type in the correct scale as a quarter of an inch equals 1 foot. Once this is set, there is another option called precision. Here you can specify the measurement sensitivity of Bluebeam. By setting the precision option to 1 divided by 32, you can achieve the highest level of sensitivity. Next, select Apply Scale. And remember, precision is key because nobody wants their carefully scaled plans to end up looking like a surrealist painting. In the next step, we ensure that Snap to Content and Snap to Markup are enabled. This way, your cursor will automatically snap to nearby content, such as lines, corners, and intersections, when you're performing actions like measuring, drawing, or placing annotations. This feature helps you align your elements precisely with the existing content on the document. To snap to content in Bluebeam, go to View menu. On the top toolbar, select the Snap to Content from the drop-down menu. The next step is to measure concrete quantities. To do this task, we go to the Tools menu, select Measure, and then select Volume. Starting from the top left corner of the drawing, we can click on the corner of one end of the wall footing and drag to the other corner. If needed, you can select a corner vertex and drag it to further extend the markup. To enable polar tracking so that your vertex is dragged straight up or down, hold down the Shift key while dragging the vertex. The next step is to adjust the properties of this markup, including its depth, fill color, boundary color, font size, and other settings as needed. If the measurement menu is not already open, select your markup, then go to the measurement menu on the toolbar. First, specify the depth based on the structural details. Let's assume according to structural details, this is a 2 feet deep footing. Then go to the Properties menu. The most important properties are the markup subject and its label. For the subject, we can type in foundation, and for the label, we can type in 2 feet high, 3 feet wide wall footing. Next, we should specify which captions we want to make visible. We select depth, height, and width. The length option refers to the perimeter of the markup, which we don't need at this point. We then specify our preferences for color, opacity, boundary line style, font size, and many other options. Once this is done, if we move to the tool chest menu, we can see that the markup we just used has been added to the Recent Tools panel. Every time we need to create a new wall footing of the same type, we can simply use the Recent Tools panel. The next step is to measure another footing. We should create additional types of volume markups when needed by simply repeating the same steps as before. Now let's check the markups list to see how the various properties of our markups have been recorded. Whenever needed, we can export the raw markups data into a CSV file and later open the measurements in Excel to create a table of quantities. Organizing the table of quantities is very important, which we will discuss in a separate video. Before we finish the session, I want to add a quick point about how to insert a legend. A legend is a simple table that includes a description of our markups, as well as characteristics such as their quantities and units. To insert a legend, we need to select the markups we want to include. We can select all the markups at once by using the Ctrl and A keys together. Alternatively, we can select the first markup, hold down the Shift key, select the second markup, and continue until all the markups of interest are selected. Once the selection is complete, right-click on the selected markups, select Legend, and choose Create New Legend. This creates a basic legend which we can drag and place wherever appropriate on our worksheet. If we want to modify the properties of this legend, we can simply select it, right-click, and go to Properties. Here we are given many options regarding the title, the column headings, and the content of the legend to choose from. We may want to make the markup labels visible as they contain important information about the type of items. Before closing the program, do not forget to save your markup sheet to preserve your work. And remember, if you forgot to save and lose your work, you blame it on the gremlins in the machine.